All right, so Diddy was denied bail by a second judge in 2 days. So you gotta say to yourself, for them to deny a $50 million bail package that he put together with his lawyers, including his passport, his home, his mother's home, his kids' passports, he's given them the locations of everywhere he even intends to be, and they are still saying, no, you are a threat, you are a danger to the public, and we don't think that it's a good idea to have him out, especially because he's 54 years old, he's looking at 15 years in a minimum and a maximum amount of life. So it's presumably that, if he decides to run and thinks that he's probably going to die in prison because he's facing naturally the end of his life and ending in prison, he may just try to run, especially looking at the charges that they got. So they're denying him bail. This must be amazing to have all of this money, all this access to resources, and none of that can help you in this situation that you're in currently. So Inner City Press, we're going to go to his Twitter page. He is a beat reporter constantly in the courtrooms on a daily basis. Everything he's going to be tweeting is like a live court reporter. So all of the minutes and things like that we got right here. So let's see exactly what it was that went into this judge denying Diddy bail for the second time in 2 days. All rise, government. AUSA, which is the United States Attorney, right? The Assistant United States Attorney, Emily Johnson. The freak-offs were elaborate right out the gate. They began in 2009 and extended into this year. These freak-offs were arranged with his entourage. The defendant used narcotics so that the victims would continue. Ketamine, GHB, and others. These are the drugs that they're listing. AUSA then goes on to say the defendant will record these freak-offs, at least in part to use them to blackmail. We have an email. A victim says, you were going to make me blank, because they said I'm not even going to say it in public record, or you were going to leak some FO-ish, which is the freak-offs. Then they went on to say a different victim wrote, he said he was going to expose me with the sex tape. I was drugged. That's just two examples. And so it's rich when the defendant's submission filed today accuses the victim of extorting. He's the only extorter. So they're like, his team is putting together a package saying that people are just extorting Diddy for money, and a lot of this stuff is just hyped up BS when people were willing participants and everybody knew what they was getting into. But now, because it's convenient and there's a money grab at play in the bigger picture, they're all rolling to get Diddy thrown under the bus. So that's what they respond to, saying he ain't being extorted. He the one who been extorting people. So they go on to say, we seized 6 guns. They were in the defendant's home and he had access to them. We are focused on the defaced guns in defendant's closet. Ooh, that's going to be a hard one to deny. That's in his closet. This is not about security, but dangerousness. The security team is the same one he says would monitor him. The head of his security has now been served with a subpoena, given what we've learned about his role in the offense conduct. And if you see my previous video, his head of security was also Michael Jackson's head of security at the time of his death. And he got that job when he was like 21, 22 years old. Crazy. Either way, now about the hotel assault, that's the one when he beat up Cassie that we all saw. Yesterday, defense counsel called it a fight in a relationship, but it's trafficking. Ooh. The defendant had a freak-off on March 5th, 2016. We have evidence. There was one commercial sex worker there in the room during the assault. That lets you know what? Somebody's telling. Woo! They got evidence of at least one. Bought a booty in the room. Somebody bought a booty and it was in the room. That's what they're pretty much saying during that assault. She isn't even wearing shoes. She is in danger. The defendant storms out in a towel. That's what we saw on video. First of all, time out. Before we even continue, when they first released that video and they said, oh, it was past the statute of limitations, we're not even able to charge him for it. And people with common sense said to themselves, well, why would they put a video out like that if they're not able to charge him? Well, let's add it up. they're not able to charge him for what you saw in that video, but what it does is now demean his character in the public, right? It lets the public now leave all that sympathy for him at the door, saying, oh, they try to do this to a black man. Nah, now you see these type of heinous acts that he's done, and it makes you feel no sympathy for Diddy. So now they can go, let's do whatever we want. Let's hang him for the public to see, because there's nobody now who's going to dare step up and defend this type of guy. Because why would they defend him? We've seen what type of shit that he does on video. We got the proof. So to defend him would make you look crazy, and nobody's going to do that at this point. So now Diddy is in a position where there is nothing that can be alleged that's going to look so far-fetched because of his own actions and activities. Like, he looks like the type of monster that they're trying to paint him out to be. Even if they made him seem like the worst nigga ever, at the end of the day, what can he say? What can he say to combat that? Based on the things that we've seen in that video, what could he possibly say to make us feel like, oh, he was bad, but he wasn't that bad as they trying to dog him out and make him seem like? No, he probably was even worse than what we can even conceive based on the things that we've seen, right? So everything that they're now saying and throwing to the wall is gonna stick, because he looks bad, bro. He looks bad. And that's what the whole point of putting that video out there was. Now let's get back to where we are here. After he stormed down the tower, we have a message from the victim. I still have crazy bruising. He claims he wanted to get his clothes back, but that's not what happened here. She tried to escape a room with the defendant and a commercial sex worker. She fled without shoes. Immediately after the assault, the defendant sent these messages: call me, the cops are here, I got 6 kids, yo, please call, I am surrounded, you gonna abandon me all alone? The defendant knew he had done something that could at least elicit police response. So these are texts that they have sent by Diddy after he beat up Cassie, and that the cops were gonna get involved in everything. He covered up what he did. This year, after the surveillance video came out, only then did he admit that it was him. Yesterday, it was claimed that the clothes were taken, but that's not what happened. Why drag the victim back down the hall to the room? That's what they're saying. Like, if she really took his clothes, why would he then turn around and drag her back into the room? Is that somebody that you would want in your room? Somebody like that who's stealing and doesn't seem trustworthy? Or is it that he's just sitting here trying to find an excuse to justify his behavior on that day, which is inexcusable? AUSA continues, the indisputable evidence. The indisputable evidence. They saying whatever it is right now that you seeing is, and that we got on him, indisputable. He ain't gonna be able to cap his way out of this one. Indisputable evidence makes clear you cannot take the defendant at his word. So they're like, he's a liar. They're finding the cleanest way to say that. He flat out, dude is a liar. The indisputable evidence makes clear you cannot take the defendant at his word. March 5th, 2016 is far from the defendant's lone act of violence and obstruction. Freak-off activity is the core of this case. They use force, coercion, and drugs. Our investigation is ongoing. Half a dozen escorts is just the tip of the iceberg of the number of escorts who have participated in these freak-offs. This case is charged a sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion. The acts were not consensual. That goes back to them saying that there were people who were drugged, and they have emails and proof of this. So if you have people saying, yo, I had no idea what I was doing in that situation, and he recorded me, and he's using it to extort me, and all of this, it's a tall task Diddy is facing to try to beat these charges. And hey, they go on to say again, the defense is arguing that anyone in a freak-off wanted to be there. That's not the law. When people are threatened with exposure and are beaten, they cannot consent. That is trafficking. Victims' heads were slammed against car windows. Whew. Here are some texts. When you get fucked up, you knock me around. I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child. We have witnesses who witnessed the injuries. This conduct happened behind closed doors in houses, hotel rooms, and cars. Judge, I can't pronounce his name, Tarnowski, was concerned. Judge Tarnowski found what she did not believe defense counsel can control the defendant. Okay, so they're saying now the last judge who just saw him the day before had concerns about him being a threat to the public because of things like this. People are being beat up by him and his team. They got people getting attacked behind closed doors in houses, in hotel rooms, beaten up in cars, people head slammed against windows. So they're saying like the last judge didn't even think that his counsel can control this dude. So this is what it is. So it goes on to say, consider the Mercedes case in this circuit, reversing the decision to release the defendant. Let's turn to obstruction. Witnesses have expressed extreme fear of him. So the Mercedes case in this circuit is probably case where a defendant was initially, because they said reversing a decision to release a defendant, where a defendant was initially going to be released, but then it got reversed. That's what I'm putting together in my non-professional legal brain. All right, let's turn to obstruction. Witnesses have expressed extreme fear of him. They have directly contacted a victim in November 2023, constant contact with witnesses to the charged conduct after subpoena before government interviews. Two of these examples, there are communications between the defendant and a witness. 13 contacts. Judge Carter, 13 contacts with two people? Sorry. The attorney, AUSA said 14 contacts. There was more between the defendant and the witnesses. Also, he outreached to a witness he had not been in contact with for several years after the grand jury subpoena. He used intermediaries, which is his little go-between people. He recorded the conversation on another person's device. In November 2023, he called twice. He twice called the victim. On November 19th, he received a text from this other person in response. It reads, "I feel like I'm reading my own sexual trauma. 3 pages, my experience." Okay. They go on to say the defendant called her and gaslit her, trying to convince her it had been consensual. He repeatedly said he was not supposed to be speaking on the phone. He tells the witness not to text him. The defendant said, if support, nothing to worry about, money. The defendant said, if support is the problem, it's nothing to worry about, which is money, right? All right, cool. So I guess they're saying they got a conversation that they made when they did their raids. They probably found tapes and things like that with him talking to somebody. He received a text from this other person in response, and saying that something happened and he was trying to convince them like, nah, that's something that you wanted to do. He was on his Bill Cosby for real. Even with all of that going on with Bill, he was still out here just boldly doing this type of stuff. The defendant wrote, his financial advisor should not make a mistake and not get that rent paid. That was obstruction. So he was offering that his financial advisor will make sure that the person's rent will be paid. And then they did citing a case of a defendant who fed a false narrative. That's what's going on here. Then they started to go into the cases. The judge said that's not necessary. I'm familiar with those cases. So now this is a bunch of legal jargon. A recent civil suit, Dawn Richard, which he used to be in his group, she recently filed a civil suit. She was in a band also with Miss Harper. Miss Harper issued a statement after 128 phone contacts. We didn't deal with Lawrence Ray's case. Magistrate judge ordered detention, even one victim, but the judge found that corroborate. All right, so going back to this right here, Dawn Richard dropped a civil suit on him recently where she pretty much was alleging that he assaulted her, sexually assaulted her, grabbing on her breasts and her butt and all of that, and that she also was a witness to him beating up Cassie a few times. Once that she said at a restaurant in front of people, and said that this girl was there, and she came out, issued a statement saying that she didn't see it, she don't know what she talking about, nothing ever happened. But they're like, yeah, you know why she put that statement out? Because Diddy contacted her 128 times. She put out that statement within maybe 2 days, and he contacted her 128 times within 2 days. Is pretty much like, they're like, yo, this dude is crazy obsessive. Like, nah, this he's a problem, right? So here we go. Traveling to New York does not address dangers to the community. I am here seeking detention, but I note that the bail package does not have enough conditions that focus on obstruction, and I couldn't. He's been involving other people. The defendant should be detained pending trial. And now the judge goes, all right, they've made their case. Defense, what you got? Puffy's lawyers now up to bat. He said, let's start with Miss Harper. I was called by her and a lawyer. I said, do what you want, make a statement or not. I later found out that she did. So the defense lawyer is like, I don't know about all that right there. I know that I spoke to her lawyer and I told them they could make a statement or not. That's on them. They did that. Miss Harper felt she was being besmirched. We did speak with her at 2 a.m. on the 11th. That's an odd time. After the judge then said, after speaking, what would be the reason for Mr. Combs to continue contacting her? He said, his lawyer says, she was concerned she was in the media. I have brought today the head of Sage Intelligence. We are proposing that Sage Intelligence personnel or formal law enforcement will be monitoring the residence of Mr. Combs 24/7. They will have 1 or 2 employees there at all times. So now they're proposing, hey, look, we have security who's going to monitor him 24/7, and there will be 1 to 2 employees there also at all times. There will be a visitor log. Only pre-approved could come in. Pre-approved people. We could give the list to the court. Mr. Combs will not have a cell phone or he'll have access to the internet. They saying he ain't gonna have no phone or access to the internet. Really. That way, no witness intimidation completely nullified. Having Sage Intelligence on site will do what we have to do. Even 3 guards will be there. If you don't believe that Mr. Combs' action and coming to New York are only about risk of flight, it shows he is deeply respectful of the court's authority. He is responsible. Mr. Combs knew he was under investigation and gave us his passport. This is not defense lawyer theater. We took the passports of 5 of his family members. We have a letter of intent to sell his airplane. We had 3 buyers who didn't work out. The judge is like, all right, can you get to the point? He just saying like, all right, look, I'm just saying it shows he's trustworthy. He's not a defendant who says, come find me in the Maxwell and Epstein. The judge then cuts him off and says, how does that relate to danger or obstruction? If he was aware in April, why was he contacting witnesses? Which is a good question. If you knew we raided you and you was aware since April that we are on your heels, why are you still contacting witnesses? How dumb can you be, bro? You contacted witnesses knowing that you under investigation. He couldn't help himself. That's why it looks kind of crazy, right? So the judge says a woman contacted him, said she gotten a subpoena. We told him don't speak to her. The judge says, talk to me about the danger that he poses. Diddy's lawyer responds, people who are a danger are people who are contemptuous of the court, but Mr. Combs has never been contemptuous of the court. He respects the court. Your Honor, my client then turned himself in subjectively, but on his own, right? He turned in his passports, he turned in his kids' passports, he's doing all of this. He's trying to show y'all he is going to respect the program. He ain't bigger than the program. He ain't a threat. He ain't a danger. He's telling people when they contact him, I can't speak to you. I gotta follow court orders. This is what he's trying to say. This is what Diddy's lawyer is trying to lay out to the judge. His lawyer then says he had a case in New York in 1999. He came to court every time. He shows up on time, which is a good argument. So the judge says, under your plan, would he still have employees? And they said, yeah, they handle his finances. They are in California. Would he be able to leave his residence? They said no. The judge says, and the security that would be in the house? He said, yes, in shifts. We could put cameras filming 24 hours a day. They could do spot checks. He doesn't use the internet. We can make it as secure as we need to make it. There are already cameras there. And he said, the judge now, he refers back to the video of them beating up Cassie. Do you see why that was important to put that video out? That's why they leaked that video. The judge said that video was troubling. He was 40-something years old. His lawyer responds, he realized he has a problem with drug addiction and anger. He went in a rehab program for a period of time. The woman in that video also went into rehab at around the same time. They loved each other. The written messages are heartbreaking. The sex and the violence were totally separate, motivated by separate things. The way they chose to be intimate, they would bring a third person on. They chose that. So that you already see the angle that they're going to use in the defense. That's why these type of court dates are important, because you get a feel for the direction that they're going to go with and everything, right? So that right there was very revealing. Like, yeah, my boy was into some freaky stuff, man. He was wild. But so what? That's what he was doing consensually. Consensually is how they're going to try to wiggle out of these charges. Judge says, what does that have to do with him punching her, throwing a vase at her? What's love got to do with that? What's love? Then Diddy's response, his lawyer responded, that was jealousy from infidelity in both directions. Mr. Combs and that other person, Cassie, the violence is from that. Judge like, what's your point? All right, and you say they invited a third person in. If that person is a commercial sex worker and they travel across state lines, isn't that a problem? His lawyer said, I've spoken with the agency. They say they are not paid for sex, but if they feel like it, yo. Nah, bro. I know he ain't trying to pull that for yo, Diddy, yo, you got too much money for your lawyer to be talking like this. You got too much money for how your lawyer gonna say, yo, I spoke to the agency that sent over the escorts. They don't pay them for sex. They pay them to come hang out, have another person, you know what I'm saying, in the room. If they decide to have sex, that's on the worker. So I see the angle, but my nigga, come on. You think since the beginning of time, people ain't been using that when it comes to escorts? Good luck to you with that. Good luck to you with that. Wow. All right. So his lawyer also says the former governor of New York, he did this. The former governor of New York, he did this, and he was not prosecuted. They are prosecuting Mr. Combs for it. The judge said, let's get back to that video and the physical beating. Why isn't that relevant to dangerousness? So you can pretty much see right off the back the tone that the judge is addressing Diddy's lawyer with. He ain't feeling him. He ain't letting him out no time soon. He said, all right, let's get back to and the dangerous. So Diddy's lawyer says it's not sex trafficking. Even if you don't trust him, trust the bond package. $50 million bond, no internet, Sage security. That will give the court comfort that he is not a flight risk. Then he can prepare for his trial. We had known this was coming. He could have run in March. Like, it makes no sense. Pretty much is what he's saying. Read between the lines. It makes no sense. He was an actual altar boy. The judge says, how far back are you going? His lawyer responds, he watches a sermon every day. Oh my God. He watches a sermon every day. He has done a great deal to earn the court's trust. I ask you to release him. He's like, Yana, this guy right here is a saint. He watches sermons every day. He's been since he was a youngin'. He was an altar boy, a real altar boy. This guy is not trying to thumb his nose at the court and run off. He could have ran off since March. We knew this was coming, and he stayed. He said, I asked you to release him. The judge says, I heard from the parties. I find that the government has proven that the defendant is a danger. Regarding the bail package, it is insufficient, even on the risk of flight. He will be detained. So after that, it's a bunch of legal jargon about the initial conference, the discovery, and things like that. They asked him if he wants to have a speedy trial, and they said they're not prepared to waive it. The first date was going to be October 9th at 2 p.m. The feds say, we want to move to exclude that time under the Speedy Trial Act. And Diddy's lawyer's like, no, I can't consent. I'll know on October 9th. And the judge said, I'll exclude time till then. So Diddy was denied yet again, with them stating that they think he's just too much of a danger to the witnesses on the case and to other people. And he's shown a pattern of abuse. And that video was so damning and came back to haunt him. And I think at the immediate minute I saw that video and they said that they can't prosecute, I said, yeah, they're definitely coming. They're definitely coming. They set the tone, they set the stage. People are not going to be as keen to support him. They're going to have a hard time, as big as that video was, finding 12 jury members who didn't see that video. People who don't have strong feelings about domestic violence. You know, all of these things come into play and are a factor. And yeah, man, Diddy's going to be locked up until further notice. I'm sure his legal team is putting together another shot at appeal for bail, and you know, we'll keep you guys posted about what's going to be the next steps from there. If you rocked with me to the end of this video, man, thank you, appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button, because we on this case. You stay right here, we on it. Bandana, it's food for thought. Y'all think Diddy gonna beat this? I don't know. This ain't looking too good. He gonna get that minimum of 15. He gonna cooperate. He gonna bring other people in. I don't know what's his options right now. It's looking real spooky for Diddy. Looking like he might end up dying in prison. That's just the reality of the situation. It's food for thought, man. Y'all do the dishes. Until next time.